Hey guys, it's Amanda. So this week I wanted to make my video on educational advocacy and social work. So this is something that I've seen in my paid profession in children and family services. It's something that was covered in that training that I attended a few weeks ago with the Lawyer for Maine Disability Rights. And it's something that I don't think gets enough attention in the social work community because I do believe that educational advocacy is one area as social workers and future clinicians that we really need to be educated about and know about. So to preface my video this week, I wanted to talk about a discussion that we had on site a few days ago. So one of the contracts that my internship site has is with a local elementary school, and basically our work there entails education and advocacy for the staff and some contact with the students there to kind of check in on how educational adaptations are going and the connection to home and coping skill use and emotion regulation and all that good stuff. So I'm going to de-identify and share a story. There is a young boy in that school who last school year spent an excessive amount of time in the principal's office, being removed from class, having to do his work from the main office of the school because he was a distraction in class and because he was a fidgeter. In the past 6 months, he's gotten a diagnosis of ADHD, and the school decided to rewrite his IEP, like scrap the whole thing, come up with a whole new one, given his diagnosis, to work on the inclusive classroom. So I think a big part of educational advocacy is the inclusive classroom. And from a legal point of view, one of the things that we learned in our training is that schools have a responsibility to provide the educational tools necessary for children to succeed. So in this particular case, the school was able to get an extra staff person to sit at a table with this student instead of a desk every day with him, just to keep him on task and assist him with anything that he needs. And the school actually paid for an adaptation that included a different style of chair and also a cushion that he could put below his feet or on his chair. That's what's known as a wobble chair, that allows him to fidget without being a distraction. So I thought that was really cool that the school was responsive. In our rural community, it's really hard to get that extra staff in class. So I think it's really awesome that they were able to do that, give him a table instead of a desk, and give him that wobble cushion. So another way that that has carried over is a case that I was also brought to last week, where the clinicians involved really thought that a student had a high number of detentions, had a lot of class removals, and you could see the impact that it was having on the child's grades. And despite outpatient therapy, despite home and community services, this particular child was still struggling academically, socially, emotionally, etc. So one of the things that the team decided to do was bring up the idea of putting a behavior plan in place written into the IEP so it would be part of that legally binding document. So the clinicians, the staff, the case manager met beforehand, before going into the IEP, and some of the staff there had been in that training on education and the legal aspect as well as the Department of Human Services aspect. And they came together and they found some evidence-based research on ways to make classrooms more inclusive. And I thought that was really cool. They presented that to the family. They asked the student questions. They asked the team questions. And what they were able to do is actually set up a plan for the client where if the teacher feels that he is also a male, that he is distracted in class, that they can come over and discreetly tap on his desk, and that gives him a cue to get up, go speak to the social worker, address whether he needs her directly in the classroom to help him manage the behavior, or if he needs to go, vent, talk about things, come back and refocus on his learning. So instead of pulling the student out of the classroom, affecting grades and emotional well-being and all that, he's now able to stay in the classroom or go get those emotional needs met and come back. And that has already, in the past few weeks, dramatically decreased the amount of detentions. And I think that's really cool. I think that's a success story. And I think we need more of those success stories where, as social workers, we work together with a team and we come up with inclusive plans for education. Just because the student has a behavior or a learning disability or an emotional irregularity, it doesn't mean that they don't deserve the right to an education, and an education that doesn't exclude them from other people. I know I've run over, but I wanted to bring up one more thing. Um, on site and also in my paid profession, the community is working on a plan to address the schools that still use exclusive practices. Here in our rural northern Maine community, there are still a few schools that use an exclusion room, where if a student's having behaviors in class or gives attitude or is just disruptive, they put them in a room by themselves where they have to sit at a table. It's not productive. It leaves the staff frustrated. It leaves the students frustrated. And the community has decided that what is going to make the impact is being able to educate, bringing in social workers, bringing in people with training experience on what the inclusive classroom can look like. And I think it just needs to be something that opens the doors for those conversations like this team had about, hey, what are our tools to make this more inclusive? And I think as social workers and as we move forward, that's something to really consider. If you work with children and families, or even parents who have children in school, start those conversations about advocacy in the classroom and inclusion, and I think we'll just end up entirely in a better place. So I wanted to end this video with saying that this month is World Autism Awareness Month, and I am really appreciating this movement this year by people who are saying, hey, it moves beyond awareness to include love and support and acceptance. And I think that's been really cool to watch that movement happen and to jump on board with that. So, as always, I want to leave my disclaimer. If anyone has any questions about autism, I am an autism mom and a huge advocate and somebody who supports education. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, anything that they want to ask me, feel free to reach out via my UNE email or start a dialogue in the discussion board. And I think autism is very appropriate as a transitional ending on the inclusive classroom and educational advocacy. Have a good week, everyone.